The Hangar Z podcast welcomes retired Coast Guard pilot and now literary aviatrix, Liz Booker.
And then goes, what do you want to do in the Coast Guard? And I said, I want to be a rescue swimmer. I suddenly was like in front leaning rest, and I had like 15 company commanders circling around me, screaming at me, making me do push-ups, explaining to me that, I was going to be alone and afraid in the middle of the ocean at night, in the water.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor magazine. In today's episode, we're joined by an incredible guest, Liz Booker, also known as the Literary Aviatrix. Liz's story is one of true grit, service, and inspiration. She dropped out of high school and enlisted into the United States Coast Guard, beginning her journey as a deckhand before moving to become a navigator, and later earning her commission through Officer Candidate School. Liz went on to serve as a Coast Guard pilot flying the H-65 Dolphin and completed an extraordinary 28-year career, retiring at the rank of Commander 06. Along the way, she earned her bachelor's degree and not one, but two master's degrees, one of them from the prestigious Harvard Kennedy School of Government. What began as a hobby, the Aviatrix Book Club, has since grown into a thriving community that celebrates women in aviation and storytelling. Liz's mission to connect, inspire, and empower through literature has resonated across the aviation world. We're thrilled to have Liz with us to share her remarkable journey and the evolution of the Literary Aviatrix project. Thank you to our sponsors, Metro Aviation, Night Flight Concepts, and Heliladder.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is Spotlight. Visit contest.verticalhelicasts.com to enter the buzzword.
Let's talk about risk management and in the Coast Guard. Can you give us an overview or a philosophy or the steps, however you want to word it? Give us the Coast Guard risk management, like you just talked about it as an operations officer. You're involved in that, but the pilot's involved with it, the crew's involved with it. Can you just talk about risk management overall with the Coast Guard?
Okay, I'm going to do my best here. Now you're really digging into the archives, but the Coast Guard Air Operations Manual is very clear in the very beginning of it about what gain is worth what risk. And I cannot quote it anymore. Mm-hmm. I could when I was in charge, I promise. But the bottom line is life and limb is worth risking damage to the aircraft. No, there is nothing that's worth risking the lives of the crew. We I think had this motto, or somebody heard that we had this motto of you have to go out, but you don't have to come back in. That's not true. Right. That's not true. We want everybody to come back. And so there's a whole sort of matrix of, if to relieve suffering, then this is worth it, So I can't remember, but the bottom line is the risk analysis evolved while I was in, and to the point that anytime we launched, we were ultimately doing some kind of handwritten, whether it was on a grease board, and we were, you would go through is the crew well rested? Right. Are we well trained? Are we proficient? What other operations have we done in this period? What on-scene conditions, how risky are those? And you kind of red, yellow, green them down the board, and what do you come out at? And if you come out at red, maybe there's a threshold where you're calling the operations officer, calling me, or you're calling the commanding officer and saying, hey, we're in the red, but here's the potential gain. We still feel like we should go. And then that commanding officer makes the decision. So there's a whole matrix. Every crew does it for every single flight, for every single search and rescue case. You're talking about all those things. It's part of the crew brief. Operational risk management has been part of the Coast Guard's operations, at least since I was involved. Not just air operations, by the way. My son is in the Coast Guard, and he's on a cutter, and they do it too.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Anything where you have weather and risk.
Dynamic elements in operations for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's so important. I would imagine it's probably computerized now where you can do it on an iPad or something where you're just pressing buttons and you get a number or you get a color and
we would get a number at the bottom of this thing and make a decision about what we needed to do next. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. That's what I was expecting. And the request, once you reach a red, and there are certainly missions where red you're still going. I mean, It's not like, red, we're not going.
No,
but
of course.
Goes to another level of approval. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yep.
Could it even go to a risk level where it goes outside the air station?
Yes.
Or is it all it is? Oh, it does. Wow.
No, I think okay, guys, listen, again, it's my information is dated, but I do remember there being conversations, either whether they were conversations of me saying that we were not going to launch for a reason, or we were going to launch even though, or arguing or making a case to launch, even though the risk assessment was high. There definitely was a culture when I was in Los Angeles of the district being involved, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But we had aviators on staff there too, so it's not like we were talking to people who didn't get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's important too, because the non-aviators, they look at things completely differently. Some things to a non-aviator, they'll look at something, oh my gosh, that's ridiculously risky. And you go, no, we do that every day. That's not. This is risky.
Yeah.
That's
and then the opposite would happen. Like, of course you guys can go, Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At what point, and I think you kind of hinted about this, but you started working on your bachelor's degree before OCS, or did that kick in after?
I got the minimum number of credits I needed to get my bachelor, to get into OCS. So I needed 30 college credits. I got 30 college credits. That's it. And then I did kind of like, when I got to my first unit and I was out of flight school, I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll start working on a degree. Now feels like a good time, knock it out. And so I started taking classes with Embry-Riddle.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wasn't into it. I was like, I just got out of flight school. I'm flying every day. Do I need to get a degree in aviation also? And then 9/11 happened and I had to drop out of the classes. And so I was in the middle of classes and I was like, I think I had 13 duty days in 1 month, like October of 2001. I had 13 duty days because we just went nuts. So I was like, I can't do this right now. And so I didn't touch it for years.
But then when you did, you were juggling. You were doing, working on the bachelor's, but at the same time you were working. How challenging was that?
Yeah. So when I finally hunkered down and did it, I was at Air Station Miami, which meant I was deploying all over the Caribbean at the time. I had 2 children at home. My husband was working full time and he was working on his master's degree. And I was like, I'm here about coming up on 15 years in the Coast Guard. I don't have any education. If I poke my eyeball out, I'm going to be qualified to like flip burgers. Who knows what?
Yeah.
Like in 5 years, I'll be retirement eligible. What am I realistically going to do? So, and then my detailer was screaming at me that I needed to get my education. And so last minute, I crammed a whole bunch of courses. I went to American Military University online, and I also finally kind of decided what I was interested in learning about. And that was, I was really trying to understand the history and the politics behind the policies that I was enforcing. Mm-hmm. So I studied basically international relations with a minor in political science and focused on Haitian and Cuban American politics and history.
Oh,
so
wow.
why are we sending Haitians back? Why are we bringing Cubans ashore? What's the history behind that? Help me understand. And so,
because you were living that.
I was
You were
living
living that part of it. You know,
I had been living it on the ship back when I was enlisted in the 1990s during Operation Able Manor, picking up Haitians and Cubans. And I was living it again, flying the aircraft in the Straits looking for migrants.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. John, this is the second guest. It's maybe inspiring you to go. Cody, and now Liz, both of you really, talk about the hard work and, taking that extra step for educating. And even though it's tough with a family and work and all that, because John has had an interest in that, and Cody was bugging him.
Yeah, she's like, you have to go get your master's, and it's one of those things. I love education. I think it offers so much. And what you brought up, I think, is a good thing for people to hear. There's a point in everybody's career where their medical's at risk of not being approved.
Yeah.
And if that happens, what do you do next? And I think if you're not in a position where you have a trade under your belt that you can go and fall back on, or a degree that you can utilize to start your next thing, you could be in a bad spot. So I think that the detailer that spoke to you and encouraged you to pursue that was what was wise, and wise for you to follow up on that. But the transition part of everybody's career, whether it's from the military to civilian life or civilian life to retirement, that's a big part of the consideration that needs to be put into place, and what's the next thing look like, Yeah.
And it's not just your physical stuff too. I mean, you've got like the 9/11s and the COVIDs that happen. Like so many, aviation is so volatile. The industry is so volatile, especially for the fixed wing pilots and airlines, but everybody, you just don't know what is going to impact your career. And so I became a preacher when I was a detailer, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, but I went straight from finishing that bachelor's to applying to the Coast Guard's graduate school programs. And so when I became a detailer and I was counseling people, I was saying the same thing. Once you have your qualifications and you're stable in your career and you're on track, now it's time to diversify, because you do. And look at Cody. She is an absolute rock star aviation safety expert. If she poked her eye out tomorrow, she has a long career ahead of her of being a safety advisor, whether she never touches the controls again or not, because she has done the work to make herself and establish herself as an expert in that field. So like, that's what you want to do, is you want to, if aviation is your thing and you want to stay in aviation no matter what, then find something to glom onto and develop yourself beyond just the flying in aviation. If you love bicycles and you want to work on bicycles, like I know a guy, a retired Army colonel, and now he has a bicycle repair shop in his garage, and that's what he loves to do. Like, find something that you can love to do and be passionate about, and probably be, more importantly, like, make a living doing if you have to, Make sure you diversify.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
No pressure, John. Are you still thinking about it, John?
No. I mean, as much as I'd like to go,
Cody's going to call you. She's going to hear this, and because she's going to hear this, she's going to call you and say, "What is wrong with you?"
It's the whole risk versus reward. What am I getting? What's the return on investment? And,
that's fair.
There's at this point in my life, with family obligations and everything else, not in my cards.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'll learn
fair.
from people like Liz and Cody.
Don't wait too long.
Yeah.
Don't wait too long.
So you touched on it, Liz. You said as soon as you got done with your bachelor's, now boom, you applied for a Coast Guard graduate degree program. And I know all the military branches have something like this. Describe what that is that you applied for, and then what you did with it.
Yeah, so this is a professional development opportunity for officers, and then there are some enlisted programs as well. And like, I didn't come up with this plan on my own. This is another place in my life where I had sort of a guardian angel tell me give me ideas of things that I never would have known were available to me. When I walked into my boss's office and I said, I think I'm gonna go ahead and shoot for a bachelor's degree. He was like, "That's great. Then you can apply to the Master in Public Administration program in the Coast Guard." And I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And then when I did the research, I found out that the Coast Guard sent its officers to some pretty elite schools.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, and I said, do you think I could do that? And he was like, well, I mean, you can't if you don't try. So I crammed. I did 3 years worth of undergrad work in 18 months to hit the deadline to apply for that. And then I called another friend he was an officer back on my ship when I was enlisted. He was now in the officer personnel management. He was a career advisor. And I said, hey, I think I'm going to apply for this program. And he kind of chuckled at me. It almost felt like in a mocking way. And he said, what, are you making $750 on your GRE? And I was like, oh, is that what I need to make on my GRE? Okay. So then I just went home and I just crammed and jammed studying for the GRE so I could make the grade. Yeah. And then I got picked. And then pie in the sky, I was like, I want to apply for because they sent people to Harvard, to Princeton, or to George Mason or George Washington University in DC.
Wow.
All of which sounded like great opportunities to me. I went to and so remember, my parents are in academia, right? So I know a thing or two about the snobbery that goes on behind the curtain in academia. Yeah. And so I went to a college panel that was local here in Miami. And there were admissions officers from various schools, including Princeton. So now I already knew that I had done sort of my own personal analysis on what the programs were. Princeton is a very small program. So first and foremost, it would be highly competitive to get in. But also, it's just a smaller experience. It's a quieter experience, whereas Harvard is really bustling and you have people coming and going all the time. And that's kind of what I was hoping for. And so I very strategically went to the Princeton admissions officer and I said, how would you feel about an applicant who has a bachelor's degree, undergrad, applying for your program, with this GRE score? And he was totally in character, like a complete snob about it. It would depend on the school's accreditation. And I was like, obviously, I mean, the school's accredited, but so yeah. I was not, the Coast Guard rightfully made me apply to multiple places, and I did. And I got my letter of acceptance from George Mason, and I got my letter of acceptance from George Washington. So I was good to go. I was going to school one way or another. But then I got my letter of acceptance from Harvard. Yeah. And I got to go. And
it's the school, specifically the school part of Harvard is?
Kennedy School of Government.
Yes.
So I earned a Master of Public Administration from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government.
Wow.
Oh.
It's pretty
That's amazing. And so that was your full-time Coast Guard job for a while.
For a year. Right? It was 1 year, but best year of my Coast Guard career. So fun.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
Wow. It's exciting.
Amazing. Yeah.
And an incredible opportunity that you worked hard at and you got it and you went there. So now you have that.
Yeah.
What happens next in the Coast Guard? What does that change in the Coast Guard when you have that master's in your hand from that school in that major?
You owe the Coast Guard time. You have to do a payback.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely nothing except for that. I mean, they call it the H-bomb, which implies it's going to impress everybody who hears it, but nobody really cares in the Coast Guard. Now you owe them 18 months. 3 months for every month that you went to school. So
okay. So it doesn't affect. It won't affect a promotion or anything like that.
I mean, the fact that you have a master's degree, yes, and maybe somebody looks at it, but it really is only one aspect of a variety of things that they're looking for promotion.
It's not a prerequisite for certain promotion or anything like that.
I mean, when I was sitting behind the curtain and we were doing promotion, selection panels, that was part of the criteria, but it was one of many things master's education, period. That weighs in operational experience, performance, boom, diversity of background, boom. So whatever it is. So
Gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha.
it's one of many things. But yeah, my payback was the natural payback would have been to go to the budget shop. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm not that great with numbers. And so I got very fortunate to be invited to become an officer personnel manager. So to go to the Human Resources Department in the Coast Guard, OPM, Officer Personnel Management, and be one of 2 assignment officers, detailers, managing the aviation assignments. So pilots being assigned to the 27 air stations across the Coast Guard. So 1,200 pilots, 27 air stations, and staffing those air stations appropriately so that they can maintain their operations.
Yeah.
And also, pilot sessions and selections. So going to the academy, OCS, and taking applications like mine was from across the Coast Guard to apply to flight school, evaluating them and making those selections. And then also the Coast Guard gets about a third of its pilots direct commission from other services.
Yeah.
Lots of Army, prior Army.
Yeah.
And so I would sit on those direct commission officer selection panels and manage those sessions and bring those people into the Coast Guard.
We've had a couple of them on the broadcast.
I know, I've heard.
Yeah, very interesting. And we talked to them at length about that decision, and it's like Coast Guard helicopter flying is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is. It's unique. It's got the search and rescue part of it just is so rewarding that it just draws people. I think is that what you found? You dealt with the applicants. Is that what you found when you were talking to them and kind of coaching them?
The mission is always a big sell. Like the mission is always a big sell, whether they're drawn by, that search and rescue mission or even the law enforcement. A lot of them. Yeah. Another thing I'll say is that there is definitely an appeal for the fact that we're always doing our mission. So even outside of wartime, where the military is training, even if they're not deployed, but they don't necessarily get to, and who wants to really have to do the thing that they train for. That's definitely an appeal for people to come into the Coast Guard is the idea that, we're training for the fight that we're fighting every single day. Yeah. But then also like the quality of life of not having to deploy for 6 to 8 months to Iraq and Afghanistan at the time was a huge motivator for people to shift to the Coast Guard. So, yeah.
I didn't even think about that non-wartime footing, aspect. I mean, but that has to be huge. I mean, I remember talking to my son about that. Are you going to stay in or not into the Army? Right. He was a paratrooper, and he said no. And one of the reasons was he said we're getting out, and it's going to be boring. Our training is going to change dramatically. I'm going to be painting sidewalks, and there's going to be a switch. Whereas Coast Guard, every day you're going on a mission. Or the potential is there, and that's interesting. Very appealing. I can see that. Nice commercial for the Coast Guard aviation program, Liz.
You're
very
welcome,
nice.
Coast Guard.
Yeah. Eventually, you go to a different position, and I'm going to say the position. I'm going to read it off. It's Targeting Chief and Deputy for Operations at Joint Interagency Task Force South, Counter Narcotics Interdictions. Whew. Wow, that's a long title.
There's a couple of titles. It's a couple of titles. I started off as the targeting chief. Then I became the deputy for operations. And then I went over and did sort of the chief action group or commander's action group for my last 6 months there. But yeah.
Gotcha. But it was all part of that task force?
Yeah. Joint Interagency Task Force South is the counter narcotics they're basically responsible for counter-narcotics operations in the Western Hemisphere. So, not just U.S. And when we say U.S., it's joint and interagency. Those are key words of it. So it's everybody, and international. So it's our international partners also participating in doing those interdictions in the Caribbean and the Western or the Eastern Pacific. Yeah.
Wow. So, John, just so you know, suspects hide in trash cans, and there's narcotics interdictions in the Caribbean. We can add that to our list of
who would have thought,
Mr. Of the obvious things in war and the like. That was probably a very busy task force. I would imagine that was a high-paced job, or no?
Thank you to our sponsor, HeliLadder. Enhance your fall protection and maintenance efficiency with HeliLadder, the industry standard of ladder workstands. The iconic orange MX-5 system is fully modular and compatible with countless aircraft models for any type of operation, making you money by preventing accidents and reducing maintenance errors. For a free quote and special discounts, visit heliladder.com. Focus on your work, not your balance.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
It was very busy, very rewarding. Honestly, it was the best job I had in the Coast Guard.
Wow.
It was a bummer that I didn't get to fly there, but I still got to wear a flight suit to work every day. And I got to be involved like in tasking our air assets, but not just Coast Guard air assets. So a whole bunch of other ones as well. And, every single day we had a bell on the floor. Anytime we got an interdiction, we'd ring the bell. That kept everybody motivated. The watch floor was in the Joint Operations Center was basically a mix of every military service, Customs and Border Protection, and we had our other partners like FBI and the folks there. So it was really each organization that was represented there was there partially representing their own interests. However, we all had the same end game in mind. And so even through that friction, that interagency friction, and even joint service friction sometimes, we were all working for the same relatively righteous goal.
Right.
If you think big picture, this is where sort of the Harvard problem gets in there, like the global aspect. If you think about the big picture, global issues that cause, counter narcotics to be the problem that they are, and like the geopolitics of it and those kinds of things, then then you'll never sleep at night. But if you just stay focused on, we got a target, we have these assets, we have to put these assets on this target, and if we do that and we get the drugs and we detain the bad guys, then we have succeeded.
Yeah. And that covered a huge area. I mean, that was stationed in Florida where you were working?
It's out of Key West, yeah.
Okay, so you're in Key West, but it was both Caribbean, Atlantic, and Pacific, right?
Our primary operations were focused. The primary operations where we had tactical control of assets were in the Caribbean area of responsibility and the Eastern Pacific. That's where we had control of assets.
Gotcha.
We had visibility beyond that, and we had partnerships beyond that. But that's where our tactical operations were focused.
Right. Wow. That's a big job. That's a big, big job. Amazing. After that, you have one final position that you go to where you finished your career. And this is fascinating. I can't wait to hear this because I have no idea. This is completely foreign to me. And it's very unique. And after talking to you and hearing your education and your personality, I see why you were selected for this, and I see why you liked it. But you were the senior defense official to Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. And you were assigned with an ambassador as a senior military rep. Is that describe it? Or the title?
Yeah, that's pretty close. So a senior defense official is the senior military representative to the militaries and, the chiefs of defense and the chiefs of police in a foreign nation. They are the senior military advisor to the U.S. ambassador in that nation. And
Gotcha.
they report also to the combatant commander for that region. So for me, it was U.S. Southern Command. And they also report to their own home service, so the Coast Guard. So I had three bosses, basically. I had the U.S. ambassador, I had the combatant commander, U.S. Southern Command, and the Coast Guard that I worked for while I was in that job. And then I worked directly with, and it's very unusual for an embassy to have more than one country that they're representative to. There are maybe 3 or 4 embassies in the world like that. And Barbados has the largest contingent. I mean, they're small nations, but that, when you talk about, I basically had 7 nations, 7 countries. So 7 chiefs of police, 7 chiefs of defense that I was working with.
Wow.
All with their own little island personalities and needs and capabilities and that kind of thing. And so what we did, my very small office was responsible for supporting our national interest there is to make sure that our partner nations in the region can defend their own borders so that, we can stop things getting all the way to us. And so, in particular, obviously counter narcotics is probably one of the big focus, but other kind of smuggling operations and things are relevant as well. So our goal was to help support them, especially in their maritime operations. And that's why it's a Coast Guard officer who is in that job. And, we would support them by either funding or helping train them on surface assets. So Coast Guard boats, we would sell them boats. We would teach them how to maintain them. We would teach them how to operate them. We would do international exercises with them so that they could learn operations, in a complex, dynamic environment, so that they could interdict things coming to their shores. So that's, in a nutshell, what I did.
That's a lot on your plate. So let's back up. How did that position come about? Were you recruited? Was it something you saw at one point being part of that Southern task force? Well, how in the world did that come onto your radar and you end up there?
Some things you don't even realize are on your radar. You want them. So that grandmother that I talked about, who was in the Coast Guard, I hadn't known her until I was a little bit older in my childhood. And when I knew her, I didn't know about the Coast Guard part of her. What I knew about her was that she was in the Foreign Service and that she had lived abroad. And so there was a part of me that always fantasized that I would do my 20 years in the Coast Guard and then I would go join the Foreign Service and be a foreign diplomat. Well, when I was at Harvard, I spent the whole time there listening to people just trash the State Department, trash it. And not because of their mission or anything wrong with it. The fact that they were underfunded to do the job that they had to do overseas. And when I heard that, I was like, do I really want, I already feel like I'm a part of an organization that's underfunded to do the job that we have to do. Do I really want to go work for another one, in my second career?
Yeah.
So I kind of gave up on that idea. But I had gotten to a point in my career where I wanted to get back into aviation, but for a variety of reasons, competitively, I was not getting back in. I tried, and I extended at JIATF South a couple extra years, and then I asked for some special assignments out of JIATF South. I competed really well for the Commandant's speechwriter. I really wanted that job, but I got beat out. And then I was being offered jobs at the SecDef's office. And at the time, Ash Carter was the Secretary of Defense, and he had been my professor at Harvard. And I was willing to do that, but it sounded like they were going to extend the guy who was in the job. And I was just like, you know what? I'm out. All that I saw ahead of me were jobs that were going to be absolute grinds that I didn't ask for. It's like musical chairs, because I knew I had been a detailer, so I knew how this worked. And I was running out of chairs, and I was just like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the long shot, and I'm just going to ask for the crazy thing that I always wanted to do. It's my last chance. So I re-racked all of my assignments that year, and I asked for overseas jobs. And I really wanted to go to Europe. I wanted to go to AFRICOM and live in Stuttgart, Germany, and talk about counter narcotics, because that's what I was good at. I had been doing that for, at JSF. So I got a call offering me Barbados, and I was like, can I have 24 hours to figure out where that is? And I took the job, and they send you for 6 months for training at Defense Intelligence Agency, and you learn how to be an overt collector. So a senior defense official is an attaché, which is, and that's common knowledge. Everybody knows this. You are an overt collector,
right?
Intelligence collector, and how to talk your way out of situations, which was something that I wish So I learned how to be a diplomat, and I wish I had had that training early on in my career because, oh my goodness, so many things in my life would have been so much easier if I had learned how to be diplomatic when I was in my 20s.
Yeah. Oh, don't we all wish that?
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
So
That is fascinating.
it was great. Yeah.
So you didn't know about that particular spot. You just knew about the overall, that there's overseas jobs there that involve diplomacy but you ended up at Barbados, which is down in a region that you'd been working very closely at.
Yeah, I mean, dude, my two classmates at DIA, one was going to Haiti. No, thank you.
No.
And the other, and I mean, I had studied Haiti, but there was no reason that I really wanted to be in that mix, especially with a family. I wasn't going to go there with a family. And then my other friend went to Costa Rica. So there were 3 Coast Guard senior defense officials in the region, and that's where they were going. And so, yeah, I felt confident about it because I understood, obviously, what was going on in the region. I also knew that the Eastern Caribbean wasn't exactly like the hotbed. And so it was a rude awakening when I went from being like the star of the show at Southcom from Jayat of South to being like, oh, it's Liz again in the Eastern Caribbean. What does she want? We have more important things to do.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of that, just because, they've got their hands full with Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil. Like they got big stuff. And so sometimes the Eastern Caribbean kind of fell through. And so I was kind of like screaming, like banging my spoon on my high chair, begging for attention.
That's great.
Yeah.
But 28 years, Liz, 28.
It was a good run.
That is a really good run. And it's a long run. Yeah. That is, I'm curious.
And we're only curious. 2 hours into this.
No. Well, I'm curious as to 28. That's longer than normal for a military career. Was it because you just loved your job, or was it because there was always something else that you were reaching for? Very few people stay in the military for 28 years. What was Liz Booker's reason?
All right, you want the real truth?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I did.
Or you can lie to me. I don't care.
I know. I loved the Coast Guard. I'll be honest with you. I didn't love everything about the Coast Guard.
Of course not.
And that job in LA was rough. I had a rough relationship with my crew, my bosses. We had a lot of differences of opinion. It was a rough tour for me. And I'll be honest, I was planning to get out after that tour. I was hitting 20 years.
Okay.
But I didn't have anything I was like dying to do after that. And so the game that my husband and I decided to play was like, let's see where they send us. And, I was trying, the job that I really wanted, talking about Hollywood, I really wanted to go to the motion picture office in Los Angeles.
Oh.
I was living in Hermosa Beach. And I loved Hermosa Beach. And so I would have loved to go be the Coast Guard's advisor to the motion picture office and work with Hollywood.
That would have been a good gig.
Yeah, it would have been a good gig. So anyway, I got this job in Key West. And I also did the math. If I retired as, I think I would have been in 04, I wouldn't have had the 3 years as an 05 yet. So if I retired at 20 years, or if I stayed for another 6 years, all I needed to do was promote and stay another 6 years. My take-home retirement pay was going to double.
Oh,
my monthly income was going to double. Yeah, so it's kind of like, what else am I going to do? And then I kept getting offered. I would have retired out of Key West if I didn't get a good job, and I did.
Right.
And then, in Barbados, it was time to go. I wasn't getting selected for anything good, and so I was like, I'm done. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what year did you retire again?
2019, right before COVID.
2019.
Yes.
Oh, those were the days. So 2019, and you're out after 28 years. Did you know exactly what you were going to do next, or did you did?
Yeah.
Go tell us about that.
Yeah. So when I was at Jayat of South, especially when I was the targeting chief, our battle rhythm was everything started at 7 a.m. and like brief. And then it was decisions, and then it was orders. And like the orders were done at like 2 in the afternoon. So after 2 in the afternoon, I had like a little bit of housekeeping to do. But then I had all kinds of time on my hands. And so I did some joint professional military education. I did what I would have needed to do if I got picked for senior service school, and I finished that. And then I was like, I had this book that had been bothering me since I was stationed here in Miami, and it was a young adult novel that I wanted to write. And so I decided to go get a Master of Fine Arts in Writing for children and young adults. And so I found this low residency program at Vermont College of Fine Arts, which turned out to be at the time, the best college, this program for this. If I submit a manuscript to an agent and say that I'm a graduate of Vermont College of Fine Arts, my manuscript is going to get read. So that's why I picked them. So I went and I did this, and when I intended to write full time when I retired, and I did. I set up my battle rhythm. I was at the gym 5:30 in the morning every morning. Got the kids off to school. Got the husband off to work. He had been working out of the house for the past 12 years, following me around, and we moved back here very intentionally for him to go to the office, and then I was going to get the house to myself. I wrote a whole new manuscript in National Novel Writing Month in November of 2019. I was trucking along, and then COVID happened, and it just turned everybody's worlds upside down, obviously. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then, like John, COVID changed everything. You got bored, and it was stagnant, and you had to find something. And John found this podcast. And here we are 5 years later.
Yeah, and look at you, John. This is a huge success.
Look at John.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at COVID sociologically and look at things that happen negatively and positively for folks.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're going to study that for a long time.
Oh,
there's
for
going to
sure.
be a lot of interesting things that come out of that. But, for me personally, man, I'm thankful for the podcast and the community that's been built from that. And you've built a very similar community. So I'm excited to hear about you and what you did there.
I fits and starts. I tried to get control of my life in this house and tried to control other people, issued daily plans of the day and orders, and nobody listened to me, and I didn't understand. And yeah. And then I part of the thing that I like to talk about is that my relationship with aviation needed therapy. I mean, aviation was my first love. I always wanted to fly, but I went through some rough things in the Coast Guard, and I knew I wanted to inspire the next generation, but I needed some motivation and inspiration myself. And I was feeling disconnected from the aviation community. My plan was to go fly when I retired, and I couldn't do that because of COVID. And so at some point I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could start a little book club and we could read books that feature women in aviation, and then I could meet some people and we could talk about it, and I can get my motivation and my inspiration back so I could work on these creative works that I was so passionate about. And I went into the women aviation Facebook groups. We have a few of them, female aviators sticking together and lady aviators. And I just jumped in there and I was like, hey, would anybody be interested in starting a little book club where we talk about books that feature women in aviation? That's it. 5 minutes later, I had 45 responses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa, wait just a second. I just wanted 10 people. I'm serious. This is how this went. It's crazy. And then, so I'm like, real quick, how do I keep track of this? And so I real quick Google, how do I make a Facebook group? And so I made a Facebook group and I called it the Aviatrix Book Club. And I had 600 members in the first week.
Wow.
I had 1,200 members in the first month.
Wow.
And then I was just like, what the heck is happening? I feel like, the sky parted, a light shone down. I was like, oh, okay, you're supposed to be doing something here. Okay, I'm listening, I'm doing it. So it just grew out of that. 1,200 people is a lot of people to make decisions with. So I was like, let me put my commander hat on. I'm going to make decisions about what books we're going to read. So then I go looking for books, and I discover, I start down these rabbit holes of, women pilots on Amazon. I get an 80-page return. And the most interesting book that just came out is on page 40 of that return. And I'm like, that's not okay. So I'm going to make a website. So I make a website, then I decided I'm going to interview the authors, which was so scary to me. I mean, putting myself out there, not just people say, oh, you seem so natural. This is terrifying to me. The first time I did this was absolutely terrifying. The first person I interviewed was Erica Armstrong, the author of A Chick in the Cockpit. And she was lovely to me. She supported me. But yeah, I didn't know what I was doing and I was scared. And I very deliberately chose to make those interviews for video, not just podcasts, because a fundamental belief of mine is that people need to see someone who looks like them to believe that they can do it. And so that meant that I had to look at myself on camera, which was awful. So yeah, it was really scary. And but now, 5 years later, I have, over close to 40,000 views and listens, and a huge community of wonderful. I mean, the best thing that's come out of this is really the network. The authors didn't know each other before me, most of them, and now they have a whole network. We have this whole wonderful network of readers, and they're my friends now. So I have surrounded myself with people who are doing the thing that I want to do, who are moving in the direction that I want to go. Most of them are more accomplished than I am, so I'm always reaching up.
Yeah.
That's, I think, one of my big goals is to surround myself with people that are better than myself. You know,
you never want to be the smartest person in the room.
No, I think that challenge of being around folks like that is inspiring. So what you've done there is really, really inspiring. The network that you've created is amazing.
Thank you.
I love what you've done. The passion that you've got. I talk about aviation therapy. I think you've created your own therapy group.
Oh, 100%.
And it's not just for you all. It's like you talk about is inspiring the next generation, and I think that's something we all really strive to do. So kudos to you guys for doing that.
Thanks. And I just want to say, while my focus is to talk about and feature and promote stories that feature women in aviation, everyone is welcome to join us in the conversation.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you have some very interesting people that you've talked to over the years. How many YouTube on your YouTube channel, how many interviews have you done so far? I saw the number, but it's hard to decipher.
When every second counts, trust Night Flight Concepts to keep you mission ready. With advanced night vision technology, FAA certified repair services, and expert training, we've got your six. Visit nightflightconcepts.com to learn more.
So some of my interviews, so one of my goals as a reader, when I started collecting books that I wanted to read about women or by women in aviation, all the love to these ladies, and this informed my decisions as a writer as well. There were some books that I read that were clearly written by pilots. And I wanted my books to be written by a writer who happened to also be, expert in her subject. And so one of my goals when I created this was to offer our women the resources to write and publish their books and put their best possible product forward. And so I just wanted to collect, the tools and information for them to have those resources to do it really well so that their message could reach as broad an audience as possible. So therefore, some of my interviews are split into two parts. Mm-hmm. I talk about the book and that person's story, and in the second half of that, we talk about writing and publishing. So I have interviewed over 100 authors. I haven't caught up on my count yet, but at least over 100. And I have 3 interviews in my waiting list that I need to edit and get out. So
wow. Yeah. And those, are you finding success? Are you getting success stories in your feedback of people that are maybe writing right now or are starting? Are you getting a lot of feedback that keeps you going?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There are books coming out all the time, which makes me gloriously happy. And yes, so lots of feedback on how helpful sort of listening to the stories that other people have shared about their publishing processes and choices, and how they develop their writing skills. Absolutely, yeah. And all of that, that would be helpful to any audience who's considering writing their story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's scary. I mean, the world of publishing isn't a known world to most people. It's a whole, we all have books, we all read books, we all depend on books, but very few people find out how it gets to that print version unless they get thrown into it. So you're helping that, bridge that gap of information that makes it less scary.
We have so many more choices now than we had in the past. And so pretty much anybody can publish a book. If you want your book to be read, though, there are certain things that you can do to make sure that it's done well. And that's what I hope to give people. Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And you look at, both of our platforms are designed to promote and benefit the aviation community, in particular the helicopter community. Your goal of inspiring people and giving them the tools to write is really cool. And we've taken on a similar mission in the way that we do our interviews. The first usually half of our interview is giving a perspective on someone's background. And why we think this is important is, for what you said, it's not always really clear how you get into aviation. How do you pursue the goal that you have of being an aircrew member or a pilot? So it's really interesting to hear like your background and how you did that. So somebody listening can be like, well, there's not a cookie cutter way. There's so many different ways. So it's pretty cool to see that you're doing the exact same thing, just on a slightly different trajectory,
Yeah, it's all the same. Yeah, I think everybody's story. I mean, I would love to interview you guys and hear your stories. Everybody has a unique path, and that can be instructive for other people, inspiring. It can be healing. If you've gone through some hard things and somebody else has too, and they hear your story, they don't feel as alone in that. There's so much to it, so much to storytelling.
Yeah.
We
find it in law enforcement. John's heard this 1,000 times, so have I, that when they hear, oh, you were a pilot in law enforcement. Oh, so you were in the military? No. I mean, everybody thinks that. They think it's automatic. That's the only way you can become a pilot in law enforcement is that you have military. No, actually, the majority are not.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not. I mean, maybe I have a little more exposure than most people, but that's not what I think.
It's like no, but the perception is there. I understand the perception too. I understand why they think that. Now, at one time, there was more of that after Vietnam, for instance. There was certainly an influx of helicopter pilots into law enforcement, but in today's world, it's like, no, there are military pilots that end up law enforcement, but that's the perception that we try. That's one of the reasons why we love the stories. Cause I mean, we've had stories where they're just kids that live across from an airport and go over and wash airplanes, and then they end up flying the airplane, and then they end up, flying helicopters, and it's fascinating. Everybody's is different. We love it.
I mean, that's one of the things that I love about this too. There was a part of me that thought, I'm really committing to something big here, and am I going to burn out on this topic? But it's not possible. It's so diverse, and I am inspired every single day. I've sat on some scholarship committees over the past few years, and all the respect to any of you, I mean, doing it through the military had its own challenges, and I paid in my own way. But man, it is hard to pursue your certifications in the civilian world. And so all the respect to all of you who have navigated that path. And I'm just inspired by all the various ways that people, and creative ways that people come up with to do it. Yeah.
The cool thing about what you're doing, Liz, is that, you just mentioned that am I going to get burned out? Or am I going to run out of topics? Am I going to run out of people? No. And one of the reasons is because being an author, you're not necessarily talking about somebody today. You can go historical. Right. You can go, all sorts of different routes to talk on that topic. You'll never run out of people.
You are giving me my sales pitch for me. Thank you, Jack. You queued that right up. Yeah. So this is what I want to say. So in my research and all these books, I found that there are over 600 books on the market that feature women in aviation. But these are human stories that anyone can relate to. If you like to read there are books on my website that you are going to be excited about. I have a whole list of them whenever you're ready to talk about those, but just giving a pitch for this canon of stories. These are human stories from across history, whether they're memoirs from recent history, whether they're biographies. There's fiction. We have books in every genre from across aviation history for all ages. And I have my website set up so that you can kind of sort on your preferences. If you prefer nonfiction, if you prefer history, if you want to read about military, if you have children, want picture books, you can sort on picture books. I got it all there for you.
Yeah.
So
while we're talking, literaryaviatrix.com.
That's
literaryaviatrix.com. And I have got to tell you, that website is amazing. It's really well done.
Thank you.
It's really well done.
It's my second round. I had a practice one.
I don't know what your practice one looked like, but this one is awesome. And and I noticed that with the books. I went through a lot of them. I was happy to say that I had read at least one of them. Patty Wagstaff's book.
Okay, of course.
I'm a big Patty fan.
Higher nice, yeah.
I met Patty in 2000 at Oshkosh, and I've been a huge fan ever since. She's
I've
wonderful.
got you beat, Jack. I had a poster of Patty Wagstaff on my wall when I was a teenager, hanging upside down in her plane, and I got to fly with her like 4 years ago. I did a refresher course on my upset training and a little aerobatics with her. So I've been a fan since I was a teenager.
Well, she's amazing. She's amazing. Always has been. I mean, she was at Oshkosh this year, performing. She's unbelievable that she just keeps going. Yep. But yeah, at Oshkosh, I get to hold the ribbons out on the runway where she cuts them,
I'm so jealous.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. That was the first time I did that. I did it a couple more times for Sean Tucker, but for Patty, that was the first time. What a thrill that is when her coming by inverted sideways, cutting that ribbon that you're holding. It's like nothing else. Incredible. But she's an amazing human. I mean, just one of the best aerobatic pilots of all time.
Her memoir is incredible. Fire and Air.
Fire and Air. It's got her on the cover in her flight suit.
Yeah.
I still follow her on social media. She's still very active. So you went to her school in Florida?
Yep. Patty
and did that flight with her?
Yep. Yes, I did.
Very cool. Oh, what a highlight.
Yep.
Flying with Patty.
Yeah. My teen idol.
I like what you've done with the book list. I mean, the book list is huge. We've talked about on our podcast creating a list. Obviously, wouldn't be as extensive. I read at a 5th grade level, so
and I write at the 6th grade level. So I got you there, John.
But I love what you've done there. I'm really curious to hear about the list of books that you've got behind you to promote and talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recommended reading.
All right. I've got a list for you. But first, let me just mention also, I know you guys were there. I went to my first ever, it used to be Heli Expo. It was Verticon last year. And so it was everybody's first time, I guess, at a Verticon, but it was my first time at the conference. I was invited last year to host an in-person author event at Verticon. And the headliners were Fred and Peggy North. And VAI was very generous in supporting that event. They bought $12,000 worth of books.
Wow.
And gave them away at a reception on the floor. So my fingers are crossed that we're going to be able to do that again this year. And if we do, everybody make sure you stop by the booth. There'll be hopefully a whole new crew of authors. But while I was there was one author who couldn't make it. And so I chose to represent him because this is a story that I think every helicopter pilot should know about, should read, and especially with your kind of theme that you have here. So my number one recommendation, especially if you like history and biography, is Helicopter Heroine by Charles Morgan Evans. Charles Morgan Evans is the founding curator of the Hiller Aviation Museum in California. And this book is about an amazing woman that he discovered when he took over curating the museum. And decided to research about her. Her name is Valerie Andre, surgeon, pioneer rescue pilot, and her courage under fire. Valerie Andre was a neurosurgeon in Indochina in the 1950s, and she learned to fly helicopters so she could evacuate patients from the battlefield so that she could then go operate on their brains.
Wow.
This book is so incredibly inspiring. Valerie lived to be 102 years old. She just passed away last year. She became the first female general in the French army. So this is an incredible story. Everybody should read this one. I'm just going to give you my top 3 like in depth, and the rest I'll just run through.
Okay.
So that's my number 1 for history buffs. My number 2 for history buffs is The Women Who Flew for Hitler, the true story of Hitler's Valkyries by Claire Mully. Now, most people probably know about Hannah Reich, who was the first female helicopter pilot. But there is another pilot from World War II whose name is Melita Schiller, and she was a test pilot. So Hannah Reich was a fanatical Nazi. Melita Schiller was a Jew, but she was working for the regime and making herself uniquely valuable to the regime so that she could stay alive. It's a fascinating story.
Wow.
All right, and then my number 3 in-depth recommendation that everybody should read is, especially right now, not Fly Like a Girl, sorry, Shoot Like a Girl by Mary Jennings Hagar. This is a modern story, a more modern story about an Air Force Air Guard helicopter pilot who flew a diverse set of missions and has those stories, those There I Was stories, and an absolutely like mind-blowing story of being shot down under fire and getting out of that situation. But also it's about her fight post-service for women to be able to serve in the military. And I think especially right now, to serve in combat, that is, especially right now, this is an important read for people to get this perspective. And it's one of my favorite memoirs written of all time that I've read. Okay. So those are my big plugs, but we've got a huge list of others. And like I said, you can go on the website and sort, and there you can sort by helicopter. So more good stuff. Shannon Huffman Polson, The Grit Factor. Don't forget our air crew. We've got Shanu Crew Chick by Liz McConaughey, who is a UK. I think she was in the Air Force there, the Royal Air Force helicopter air crew. Coast Guard air crew, we've got The Hurricane Within by Ashley Leppert, and that's all about flying. I think that was during Katrina. Was it Harvey? Her experiences were Hurricane Harvey. We've got the Honorable Tammy Duckworth, Senator Tammy Duckworth, who was shot down and lost both of her legs, and she's now a senator. Incredible story there. Shatter the Sky by Meryl Tengsdahl. Meryl Tengsdahl is famously the only Black woman to fly the U-2 reconnaissance aircraft, but before that, she was a Navy H-60 pilot. I'll stop you there for a minute, Liz.
Yeah, I saw your interview with her the other night. I saw a clip of it.
Okay.
It was fascinating. I had never heard the physiological effects of flying the U-2 until I heard your conversation with her. That was really interesting.
Thank you.
I highly recommend people watching that. I was fascinated by that, but continue, please.
Yeah, and so, I probably should have said this earlier. Like, if you don't like to read, you can listen to a lot of these books on audio. And if you don't have time for that, you could listen to my interview with most of them, not all of them. I haven't gotten all of them yet, but I've interviewed a lot of these people. So
she was fascinating.
Yeah, she's awesome. That's my girl. All right, so here we go. You probably know about this one. Martha LaGuardia Kotite, our Coast Guard captain, she wrote this book, So Others May Live, about our rescue swimmers. This one I haven't read yet, but I'm excited about. It is the memoir of a British Apache pilot, Charlotte Madison, Dressed to Kill. I don't know if you guys have read that one.
Oh, wow.
And then we've got some fiction books that feature Rotary Wing. This is a fun one, Under the Radar by Sandy Parks. And then we move into our younger readers. So that that book that I recommended, Shoot Like a Girl, has a younger reader version, Fly Like a Girl. We've got this Cargill Girl, which is about the first female combat helicopter pilot in India. But this is definitely a book for a younger reader, and it's pretty fun. And y'all know about our girl Cody and her Hilo Girls picture books.
Who?
Yes.
Who are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
Cody Bogart, Hilo Girls.
But she's not the only one, y'all. So we've got my man Darcy Guyant, who created this wonderful series, the first of which is Into the Storm, it's the Dolph and Gwen books. So he basically took, I know you're not going to believe this because you're looking at my hair right now and it's short and it's white, but when I was flying helicopters, it was long and it was brown. And so he basically took a picture of me and put it on the cover of his book next to a Dolphin helicopter and wrote a series about me. But her name is Gwen.
Very cool.
Anyway, I love his books. They're so fun, and they highlight the Coast Guard's missions in a beautiful way. And he's also got this other one called Some Angels Have Rotor Blades. And y'all, for all of you helicopter pilots, especially any of you in the life-saving business, this is such a touching, lovely book because it kind of, one of the things I talk about is, how you go out and pick somebody up on their worst day and you deliver them to the care that they need and you never see them again. But in this book, you kind of like close the loop of like the impact that thing had on that person's life. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. That caught my eye the other night when I was looking through the books, that particular book. I thought that's an interesting concept. I want to learn more about that. That's interesting.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Yeah, y'all should get Darcy on. You should get Darcy on because he also has a little memoir about his Coast Guard flying. He was an Army helicopter pilot, Coast Guard helicopter pilot.
Yep.
So get him on there. I got another crew chief from the Army, Sarah Doran, Sleeping Giants. This is such a beautiful book. Mom is a crew chief and she takes her son to work and he gets to see all the helicopters. It's beautiful.
Nice.
And then we've got a series by another Army pilot, Patricia Osborne, The Spy That Could Fly, The Ambulance That Could Fly, the fire truck that could fly. And then last, but definitely not least, my two badass Apache helicopter pilots, and I interviewed them. That was a fun interview. Laura Pangallo Fryer and Morgan Samuels, both of whom were Army Apache helicopter pilots. One is the author and one is the illustrator of this fun little book, Be Something Epic, which is just, it includes aviation, but it includes a whole bunch of other things. And this is just an inspiring read for any young person. So, okay.
That's cool. That one's the animator, the drawer too,
I know.
artist.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm done.
No, that was great. Thank you, Liz.
No, thank you guys for the opportunity.
No, that
that's
was
my
great.
jam. So,
couple things before we start wrapping things up. You've been so kind with your time, and we appreciate it. I have to ask you this. This is in on your website in a box. This quote. And I'm just going to read it, and then I'm going to ask you about it. And Liz has this on the website. It says, "Between the lines of all of those accomplishments were doubts, fears, failures, mistakes, disappointments, and struggles." I think that's an important thing that you wrote there. Tell us what that quote from your website means to you.
Okay, so when I was designing my website, I was listening to a lot of Brené Brown. and there's an element of, her messaging is like making yourself vulnerable and being honest with people so that they can really be inspired. Now, so when we put our resumes online, when we post our stuff on LinkedIn, we're posting the good news. Mm-hmm. These are all the accomplishments I made. I went to Harvard, right? Well, okay, I went to Harvard, but that's not the whole story. You've heard some of the background on what it took to get there or what I went through that led me there. And not all of that was good news along the way. And right. So sometimes I think maybe, especially if a young person looks at somebody's accomplishments, it may be overwhelming, or they might think, well, I could never do that because I have this problem or I have that problem. I think it's important for us to, let people know that it's not all easy. Like today, I mean, hopefully I'm coming across put together today, but you guys know behind the scenes, I'm sick as a dog and I'm hopped up on Sudafed. I'm dealing with some really genuine, teenage hardship in my household, and I'm trying to be, supportive and warm, but that requires a lot of energy. I got a lot going on behind the scenes here.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to work on my projects, and I don't feel like I have enough time to do that. My body's not doing what I want it to do, when I'm trying to be fit. Like every day is hard. I'm struggling over here. So it might look like I'm put together, but it's like that duck, thing. I'm paddling hard under the water to look this good above the water. So I think it's important to let people know that it doesn't all, just because the outcome that you see is all polished and, here's my trophy. But I work, the training that went in to get this trophy was a lot, and I had a lot of hard days, and I probably failed more than I succeeded, and that's true of me. I definitely failed more than I succeeded. I got rejected by 4 services before I got picked up by 1. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, but there's also part of me where I'm not. There's a time and a place to air your dirty laundry, and I'm not ready to just pour my guts out on my website yet. And so, so there's, that takes incremental comfort and courage. And like I said, it was scary just to make myself vulnerable enough to be in front of a camera and be on audio to begin with. And so like bearing my soul to the world and making myself potentially a target for criticism that I'm not ready to take, like that's going to, there'll be a time and a place when I'm ready to do that, but I'm not.
Right.
So it's a placeholder to let everybody know.
Yeah. And that book will be available at some point, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it will. You have to. You have to.
We will see.
But I understand the reluctance, the pausing, the think, I got to think this through. I'll get to that point, maybe. I think that's a good way to approach it. You shouldn't force it, even though we would both tell you, you have a great story. You should write it. You have the background to really jump into that, but good reasons. I love the way you put that. Very much so.
It takes a lot of courage to tell your story, and I have all the respect to the people who have chosen to do that. But to do it well, there is an element of vulnerability there, and and you have to be willing to do that if you want people to read it. So
that vulnerability is inspiring. You talked about looking at someone's accomplishments, whether it's on LinkedIn or they might be standing in a uniform in front of you with a chest full of medals, and you're like, I can never do that. But you don't know the story behind everything that went into that uniform and earning all those accomplishments. I think learning about the failures and the vulnerability that goes into talking about that is what inspires people.
Exactly.
We're all human. Nobody's perfect. So it's comforting to hear as a consumer that, I can do that.
Exactly.
This person that did do that has failed in all these different areas of their life, but still accomplished their goal.
Yeah.
So I love these conversations for that particular reason, because it's inspiring to me. So
me
love
too.
that. Yeah. Love that you brought that up. It's a great point.
Yeah, it is. I think of Jimmy Hatch. I always do. I think of Jimmy a lot. He's the Navy SEAL K-9 handler that wrote Touching the Dragon.
Oh.
And he's an amazing guy. But when I read his book, I got done with it at like 2 a.m, and I immediately emailed him and said, all right, you've been pushing this book. You say it'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It'll make you all these emotions. So I wrote to him and said, yeah, all those things happened. And I got to tell you that the courage it took to write what you wrote, exposing himself, his vulnerabilities. I mean, he had a gun in his mouth. He was ready to end it. And now he's the head of a 501c3 called the Spikes K-9 Fund. He graduated from Yale. He's teaching at Yale. I mean, the guy is amazing. But what I wrote to him was, the courage it took for you to do that is amazing to me. All those things you did as a SEAL, those are courageous. But you know what? There's a lot of people that do that kind of stuff to tell people about your weaknesses. that takes incredible courage and incredible, confidence in I can tell this. I'm going to tell it for the right reason, that sort of thing. So I understand completely what you're talking about. That's really interesting. But at the same time, I hope that someday you go, you know what? It's time.
Yeah.
And you do it.
It'll come. I'm sure it'll come.
Tell us, as we wrap up here, you are working on something right now. When you're not doing research, flying around Alaska in bush planes, you're working on a project right now. Tell us about that before we wrap.
Okay. Wait, can I talk about flying first?
Heck yeah. Okay. Especially the research in Alaska. That's really cool.
I'm so excited. So I have been, I think helicopter pilots will appreciate this. Okay. So I have my commercial fixed and rotary wing licenses. And so when I retired, I had sort of this bucket list of aviation things that I wanted to pursue. Finish my seaplane rating. I go gliding with another former helicopter pilot all the time. We go soaring here in South Florida. It's affordable. So tailwheel was on the list. But when I got on social media for this project and I started sort of building my aviation community, I was obsessed with short takeoff and landing competitions.
Yeah.
Those STOL competitions. I mean, it's almost like they're getting those planes into a hover,
Yeah.
It's so cool. And it took me a while to actually realize why I was so obsessed with it. And I went to Sun and Fun last year and I saw it in person. And they literally are riding the front edge of translational lift, at least that you would call it in the helicopter, to get it as slow and land as short as possible on landing. And that is very similar to a maneuver that we practiced for single engine operations landing to the back of a ship. We would cut an engine and we had wheels on the 65 and we would bring it down to the runway as slow right on that front edge of translational lift and try and land in as short a distance as possible. And so, and I was really good at that and I loved it. And so I've been obsessed with it. So this year I got my tail wheel. I went and did some bush flying training. And in the process of all that, I learned about an organization called dreamflights.org. And Dream Flights flies 1940s steermen around the country to assisted living facilities, and they give veterans and their spouses who are over the age of 75 a 15-minute ride in a 1940s open cockpit steerman.
Wow.
And I am so inspired by that mission, and I am so excited to get back outside and around aircraft because I've spent so many hours behind my screen the past several years, and I just want to be involved in something. Then I called him up and I said, I want to be involved. I'll be your ground crew. I'll do whatever I can. And so I've been attending their meetings online, and I'm going to get involved. But potentially, I mean, they're looking for pilots. And so I just wanted to prove to myself that I could learn to fly this 1940s Navy training aircraft that my instructor calls the weeding out aircraft. And so I went back to New Jersey, to Andover, New Jersey, to my friend and instructor, Damian Delgazio, and I flew 8 hours in a 1940s Stearman this summer. And it is about the most fun you can have without hovering.
Wow.
It's really cool.
It sounds great.
And then, yes, I did
great.
get to go to Alaska and fly around, and my girlfriend's awesome. She has a carbon fiber Cub and a seaplane, and yeah, we had a great time.
The photos were cool.
Thank
Your
you.
social media photos were really cool on that. I was very jealous. I've yet to go to Alaska. And
you can go visit my social media and see all my cool videos from the summer with my son in Alaska. Yeah, and we're going back next year. Okay, so sorry, I had to talk about flying first, but yes, I am writing a women in aviation history book. I'm calling it a textbook. The basic concept is whether it turns out to be published as a textbook or as a trade book, the foundation of it is a 15-week undergraduate college level course on women in aviation history set on the backbone of the context of the history of aviation itself and the history of the women's and civil rights movements. And so I am deep in that. I've given myself a very aggressive 15 months. I have gathered myself a group of advisors, very respected advisors, most of whom are in academia and related to aviation, some of whom have written books. on women in aviation history. And so I'm hard at work on that. I'm excited about it. I'm on chapters 2 and 3 right now, which is the 1920s. But it's a rich history that I'm trying to condense into a very, 15-week. And that's what makes it possible and doable for me, is that this thing can't be an encyclopedia. It can't be all encompassing. It confines me to a very tight word count. And, what can I actually cover? So I'm going to do my best to hit that timeline, and hopefully we'll see that next year.
Very cool.
You have a lot on your plate.
It's fun stuff.
Wow. Fantastic. Liz, this has been wonderful. John, anything you to wrap us up here?
No, I just admire your passion for the industry, your passion for writing. Anytime you come across somebody who is passionate about the things that they do and spend time doing, I admire. A lot of people don't have that in their life, so it's really cool and refreshing to me when you find somebody who does. So thank you for spending the time to go through your career and your passions with this. Guarantee it's going to be inspiring, not just for Jack and I, but for the folks that are listening, and excited to see in person at Verticon this next year in Atlanta. Yeah. It's going to be cool. I think what you're doing is great and much needed in the industry.
Well, thank you guys. And thank you for supporting it by giving me the opportunity to share my story. Thank you for everything that you're doing for our field, because all of the things that we said about the importance of storytelling and amplifying our voices. I mean, it's healing, it's inspiring, it's educational, so people understand what we do and why we do it and how we do it, and how important our training is and our safety equipment and all the things. You guys are bringing all that to the forefront. So thank you.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Liz. Before I wrap up a thank you for Liz, I gotta thank a friend of mine here in Oregon, Kim Liska, better known as Captain Kim.
Captain Kim.
Captain Kim was at UCLA at a course and that she attended a couple months ago, and Liz was in that course with her. And Kim, who I've known now for quite a while, she called me immediately and said, "All right, you need to meet Liz Booker." I'm like, "Okay, talk to me." And she fills me and she goes, "You need to have her on the podcast. You need to meet her. She's unbelievable." And Kim is unbelievable. I mean, she's just an amazing person too. So I knew that there was something special here, and that just led us on this road. Kim is the co-founder of the Reveille and Retreat Project, and she's also the host of the Dog Tag Diaries podcast. She concentrates on retreats for female veterans and the needs that they have that sometimes slip through the cracks of other programs. She's trying to fill that gap. She does amazing stuff. I mean, she just finished one this past weekend. She's just an amazing person. And so I wanted to thank her publicly for introducing us, Liz.
Well, let me do that too. Let me do
that too.
Shout out to Captain Kim, and truly what she's doing for women veterans is such a niche and such a necessary thing. She, in the Dog Tag Diaries podcast, is also excellent. She has just some incredible guests, some incredible sheroes on there talking about their experiences. Yeah. But also shout out to the University of California, Los Angeles, Anderson School of Management for an incredible, it was the Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans. It is a fully funded program. So this shout out to any veterans out there who are entrepreneurs and ready to launch or ready to level up their game. This is a fully funded program that you apply. You can go online and look for it's through Syracuse University, but they put these courses on at business schools around the country throughout the year. It is world class. I mean, you've heard me. I've been to Harvard. I went to Vermont College of Fine Arts, and now I've been to UCLA for a week, and it was incredible. And I'm so grateful for the skills that they gave me. They really upped my game when it comes to business and entrepreneurship.
Wow. Well, just like Kim, you're saying the same thing. She couldn't talk about that enough. She was so honored to be there and thrilled. The people that she interacted with, including you, she just said it was an amazing week. She learned so much, and it's just going to benefit. It's going to benefit veterans for her.
Yep.
And which is wonderful. We always support Kim in any way we can when she has fundraisers and stuff. My wife and I love going to hang out with Captain Kim. My kids know her. My grandkids know her. I mean, she's just very special. So
awesome.
Thank you, Captain Kim, for the introduction to Liz. And I'll just wrap by this. Liz, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been incredible. You've given us a lot of time here, but I knew that we'd use it because when I just kept reading and reading about you and just going, oh my God, this is going to be a 5-6 hour gig right here. I mean, because you just have a fascinating story and you've done a lot and you just are doing so many great things after the Coast Guard. Your Coast Guard career is a big part of your life, but what you're doing now is just really important. And we were excited when we had this opportunity to contact you and you said, yes, I'd love to come on. And we were like, yes, we got Liz Booker, the Literary Aviatrix. And so thanks, Liz, for joining us. It was really fun and we learned a lot. And we appreciate you giving us all this time.
Well, you kept it under 3 hours, so good job. Yeah. My 3-hour bladder was able to make it. The honor and the pleasure was all mine. And I'll just sign off by saying blue skies and happy reading.
Yes. Go to Liz's website. You will be amazed. There's a lot of information there, not just about Liz, but the amount of information about the books and the authors and things that there's topics that you would have never even thought have been written about. And there's dozens and dozens and dozens of books. You'll find something there. So literaryaviatrix.com. Check it out. John, great hanging out as always. Liz, blue skies to you too. You're doing a lot more flying than John and I. So keep up the great work. And from all of us at Vertical Valor and the Hangar Z, stay safe. And we'll catch you the next time on the Hangar Z podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors. When every second counts, trust Night Flight Concepts to keep you mission ready. With advanced night vision technology, FAA-certified repair services, and expert training, we've got your six. Visit nightflightconcepts.com to learn more. Thank you to our sponsor, HeliLadder. Enhance your fall protection and maintenance efficiency with HeliLadder, the industry standard of ladder workstands. The iconic orange MX-5 system is fully modular and compatible with countless aircraft models for any type of operation, making you money by preventing accidents and reducing maintenance errors. For a free quote and special discounts, visit heliladder.com. Focus on your work, not your balance.
Thank you for joining us on the Hangar Z podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Liz Booker, the Literary Aviatrix. What an inspiring life story, one filled with determination, perseverance, and purpose. From dropping out of high school to retiring as a Coast Guard commander, Liz has shown what's possible through hard work and passion. Now she continues to inspire others through the Literary Aviatrix, connecting the aviation and literary worlds while sharing her top book recommendations with a growing global community. A special thank you to my friend Captain Kim for connecting us with Liz. And of course, thank you to all our listeners and our sponsors for joining us. Stay safe, and we'll catch you the next time on the Hangar Z podcast.